Well, Business in the Community is a business-led charity focusing on responsible business practice. That's through working with our 850 member companies. And we talk about transforming business, transforming communities. And I think that's really evident within responsible supply chain management, where changing what you buy and how you buy it can have a really significant impact on communities, both locally and globally. When Business in the Community was set up 30 years ago, it was in response to the civil unrest that had happened in the early 80s. And so that was, back in those days, it was very focused on community investment. But over time, as the agenda has evolved, we've started to look at workplace issues, environmental issues, and then finally marketplace issues, which includes responsible supply chain management. So it was about taking the best practice that was emerging in supply chain management, sharing that with our other members and trying to support and challenge everyone to start doing this. Responsible supply chain management has always meant managing the social, environmental and economic impacts within the supply chain. So that's using what we call compliance-based approaches, which are about putting in place a code of conduct for suppliers so that they know what's expected, monitoring against that, and then working with them to address any forms of non-compliance. But I think over time a lot of companies have seen that it's created some progress in certain areas, but it hasn't really created the significant change or transformational change which a lot of companies are now realising will be needed for them to be able to supply their products to a potential customer base of 9 billion people by 2050, but in the context of a much more resource-constrained world. So now what we're seeing people move towards is really trying to focus on what are the key issues that are going to affect our supply chains in the future, where we can really have an impact for the business, and then working across the value chain to make progress on those, both with suppliers and a much wider range of stakeholders. Typically, we've seen a lot of companies adopt supplier codes of conduct and then monitoring against those through audits, and then trying to encourage an understanding of what best practice looks like by providing support and guidance to suppliers. Increasingly and encouragingly, I think, we're seeing the gradual introduction of tools such as whole life costing to make the business case internally for investments such as things like solar panels, where perhaps the payoff period is a little longer than the return on investment period that you see for many investment decisions, but there's over, say, 5 years, there's a real payback for the company as well as for the environment. And that's really aided by where you see CR departments, procurement departments and finance departments working really closely together internally. Company Lendlease, which is in the construction sector, they recognised that they didn't have great visibility of their supply chain in terms of their social and environmental performance, but rather than go it alone and put lots of exclusively their own resource to potentially duplicate what some of their peers within the industry might be doing, they actually convened with the help of an online audit system called Achilles. They chaired a group which brought together some of their peers across the construction sector and developed a standard kind of set of questions and set of standards for their suppliers to use. And lots of suppliers across the industry have signed up to that now, and that's saved huge costs both for the brands involved and the suppliers. But then at a local level, as well as kind of increasing social and environmental standards across the supply chain, something quite specific that Lendlease have done. They have a scheme called Be On Site, which is where they set up an organisation to actually match up people who were unemployed from disadvantaged communities with construction projects happening close to them and giving them training and employment opportunities, and actually matching that up to what was happening with their subcontractors who were providing those jobs and training opportunities on site. So that's had a really good benefit. I think there's been 3,000 people have been supported through that scheme, and 216 provided with training, and 50% of those stay with Be On Site for over 6 months in that employment. So some real impacts there. If you go to our website, there's some research and resources on there under the marketplace section. That includes our guidance booklet. It's called How to Manage Your Supply Chains Responsibly, and that was developed with 10 of the top performing companies from our CR Index, which is our public benchmarking tool. And that was developed about 3 years ago, and it just provides a really robust 9-step process for any company to manage their supply chain impacts. Alongside that, we have a marketplace blog which gives insights into the latest news and views on responsible supply chain management from all over. So that's available to everyone on the website. You don't have to be a member. And we also signpost useful reports from other partners such as the City of London with the local procurement guide. We also do events, including in-house training for procurement teams, looking at some of the issues around responsible supply chain management, as well as more strategic breakfasts and dinner events with supply chain directors to help them make sense of some of the more complex issues where there's no obvious solution as yet. And then finally, we also offer bespoke support to companies through our advisory services. So that can range from developing strategy around what they should do and which issues to focus on with responsible supply chain management, to developing, say, category or issue specific plans of how they're going to implement that. And we've worked quite closely with some of our leading members over the last few years, including Marks & Spencer, Boots and Heineken UK. There'll be a lot of work happening over the next 12 months to bring together our existing sustainability campaigns, which includes Marketplace and our work on responsible supply chain management, but also the Prince's Mayday Network, which is a network of over 4,000 businesses of all sizes, from SMEs to large corporates, focusing on environmental issues. START, which is our consumer-facing campaign for behaviour change, and also Visioning the Future, which is for CEOs who really want to steer their businesses on the right course for sustainable long-term growth, but also need to do so in the context of producing short-term financial results as well.